Have you ever had your own wife try to set you up with another man? No? Yeah, is that just a me thing? Well, this happened when my wife came home one day from work and she said, I've met this guy. He's a photographer. He loves going on these photo journeys. It's something that I really think that you could get on well with him. You need to meet up with him. And, me being an introvert, I was like, that sounds cool. I'll pass for a little while. And she just kept bugging me about it. It was actually kind of weird to have your own wife trying to set you up like this, but I finally caved and I went on a photo journey with the guy sitting across the table from me. His name is Dave, and we've been good buddies ever since. It's been a heck of a journey. It's been a couple years now. We've done Christmas every year together since we finally went on that first date. And
A date to never forget.
a date to never forget, except I can't even remember where we went.
No, I can't either.
But we've gone on a couple photos journeys now. You've seen him on my TikTok if you're on TikTok with me at all. And I thought that he would be one of the perfect first guests for this podcast that we're talking about. Because obviously, we're talking about people who have uprooted their lives from one country and moved to another. And obviously, with my accent, I'm from the States, but Dave here has come from a completely different location, and I've already done too much talking, so I'm going to turn it over to Dave, and I'm just going to say, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Dave. I come from the UK and I moved over to New Zealand a couple of years ago. I really enjoy doing photography and I'm based in kind of medical imaging as my profession. Yeah, that's pretty much me really in a nutshell.
Good rundown.
Yeah, yeah.
So the medical imaging is kind of where we had the overlap. My wife works in radiology in the public system here, and Dave, you work in the private system.
Yep.
But obviously, there's a bit of sharing there, a little bit of overlap, and so that's where the connection was made. And Dave's photography is all over the websites and I guess internal imaging for your company as well. I'm not going to say names just in case.
Yeah.
But
Campuses are everywhere.
yeah. So if you ever find out where Dave's from, his work is everywhere, and that's kind of where it started. But so let's just dive in a little bit. You say you've moved from the UK, you've come all the way over here, which, to be honest with you, is probably even farther than I've moved. I think when I did the math, it was something like 13,300 Ks for me. I have no idea how far it is for you.
Yeah.
Probably should have looked that up before we started talking, but
No,
when did you first think about taking that step and moving somewhere else?
so my wife and I both worked in the NHS and we were just getting more and more passing ships in the night. So she worked a lot of night shifts. I was a superintendent and I was working all hours of the day, dealing with stresses and all kinds of things. And we just wanted a more simple life, a better work-life balance. And we decided, let's just go on holiday. Let's just go to like a couple of countries. We were thinking of going to Canada. We're thinking of going to New Zealand, maybe Australia, and just thought, let's just see what's out there, basically.
Mm.
We thought there must be a better life out there, and then we thought, wow, well, we're going to get married. Let's go on a honeymoon. Let's try New Zealand. It's got fantastic landscapes. You cannot beat the landscapes over here. And we came over in 2018, and we spent a month just traveling from the North Island all the way down to the South Island. And everywhere we stopped, we were just in awe. It's just phenomenal.
And that's where it gets you.
Yeah. And then you don't leave.
And then you don't leave. So did you stay after that, or did you go back and do some planning before you came?
So we went back to the UK and we started planning and we were all set to go. And then the C word happened.
Oh no. And not the Aussie C word.
Yeah. No. The pandemic happened, and we kept delaying it, and we'd written all our notice periods, and we were all good to go. And we were waiting for them for where I work to actually build the department where I now eventually work. And they kept saying, "Yeah, it'll be ready." It wasn't even started. Literally had not even started. I found out afterwards that they were just basically going, yeah, you can come over at some point, maybe in the future. It was definitely being built. It wasn't. It definitely wasn't.
The thing is, that's one huge difference, and I don't think I've actually ever even touched on, is that New Zealanders work on a completely different time frame to the rest of the world. And it might be Aussies too. I can't confirm that, but there is just an island time here, and I know that it's like a moderate island time because it's not the same as like I've been out in the Bahamas and oh my gosh, like you
Mm.
show up 2 hours late and you're on time kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But man, things just move a little bit slower here. That's for certain.
I think that the strangest thing was we had an interview, and because I'd had quite a senior position before, I'd gone through with my other half, Ellen, all the interview questions because I've interviewed lots of people for NHS roles, and we went through so many questions, and I prepped her, and I was like, ready, these are all the questions I can ask. We're going to be, why do you want to come and work for the company? And all these questions we prepped and ready, and they basically said, have you been to New Zealand? We went, yep, and they went, okay, cool. Yeah, so when do you want to start? Like, and we were like, oh, okay. And afterwards, I turned to my wife and I was like, did we get the job? I have no idea whether we got the job. They didn't say anything. They just asked us really friendly questions. What modalities do we want to work in? And like, what do you guys want to do? But yeah, it was a mad time, and we had our interview 9, 10 o'clock at night. And to be honest, we're at the age where we were just in pajamas. We had a suit, and a suit and a tie and a shirt
And pajamas underneath.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so that's all that can be sleep.
Absolutely. I mean, and that was perfect for COVID times too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody was doing that anyway, so why not? Oh gosh. So did that give you any kind of red flags when you were in the interview process that they were so desperate that the only question was, have you actually been here before?
I don't know. At the time, I was so happy and so ecstatic that we kind of done well in our interview that they hadn't said no. That we were just like, oh, we must go. It was only afterwards when we thought we never actually went to Timaru when we were on our honeymoon. What's actually in Timaru? And then we started Googling it and we were like, well, it has a beach, so it must be all right.
And so I had a bit of a different experience actually when I first interviewed for the job that I'm at currently, which for those of you who don't know, I work for Harcourts. I'm a real estate photographer and videographer, which is why this is kind of a transferable skill. But I remember sitting down and I went through the whole interview and it was quite rigorous. And at the very end, they looked me dead in the eye and they said, if you could be a crayon, what color would you be and why? Which is a bizarre question to
Yeah.
begin with. I think they were trying to gauge creativity.
Yeah.
And
What did you say?
I'm pretty sure I said like the blue of Lake Pukaki because it's just such an inspiring color. Talking out my absolute buttocks. But you know what? It worked out. I'm here. I've been here for 3.5 years now, working in this job, so I love it.
I did ask some questions like that in an interview. So my colleague had one that she'd always ask, which was, if you were a biscuit, which biscuit would you be? And I always thought, oh, I don't know what I'd answer. But do you have hobnobs over here? I presume you have.
No idea.
No, okay. Well,
you got the two worst people to ask that question to.
They're like really dense biscuits, and basically, I think the perfect answer is like, well, be a hobnob because you can keep dunking me in the milk, and I'll be absolutely fine. I'll hold everything together. Anyway.
Well, so if you ask me what kind of biscuit I'm going to be, and that's a completely different question because that's Southern style buttermilk biscuits with gravy and sausage on top. Oh, and just because it's delicious and everybody wants it.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
All right, so you've gone through this process. You've gotten the job. What was the actual move like for you?
It's strange because it's the actual doing it. You can plan it as much as you want in your head, and then you think, okay, I've actually got to do this, because otherwise you'll just carry on planning forever. And we went to a seminar and things like that, and just to gauge what would actually need to be done. And I definitely recommend going to some of those kind of things. We can actually ask questions of people who have actually done it. But announcing it to our family was a difficult one. They seemed okay with it, but you never really know. They were quite upset, and that's probably the hardest thing, is actually just like telling your family that you're actually going to move to the other side of the world. But once they get behind you, then it's actually a fairly straightforward process. It's a lot easier than I thought. I mean, there's so much paperwork to fit in, but if you go with a couple of companies, definitely recommend a couple of like agencies that will help you transfer yourself. It's actually a really smooth process. And they're New Zealanders are so welcoming and so friendly that we just absolutely slotted in straight away. So it's also the weight of you're waiting for your things to arrive.
Yes,
because they're on a container, and you think my whole life's on that container, everything I own, and all you do is turn up with a backpack of stuff that will
Yeah.
just keep you going. So yeah, I think once that had arrived, then I felt really settled and actually had got through the move. But yeah, until that
So
happened.
I have a couple questions about that because when we moved, we looked at the price of getting one of those containers,
Yeah.
and we were already poor enough that we were like, you know what? We'll just go with the
Oh
suitcases.
really?
So we showed up with 4 suitcases and 2 backpacks, and that's everything in the
Wow.
world that we owned at that point,
Yeah.
besides what we had in a bank account that could be electronically transferred.
Oh wow.
But what was that process like? Like, how much could you actually take? What did you take?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real. That's a really difficult question because obviously can't take care of anything. I think it's about a 20-foot container that we went, but you can get different sizes and yeah. So when you get everything shipped over, you don't have to pay tax for it.
Okay.
Because otherwise, you just be taxed to hell. But yeah, for the first 5 years, you can get stuff shipped over tax free. I think we went for a 20-foot container. You can get any size you want, basically, but it does start getting expensive the
Yeah.
more you kind of go up. So one of the things they said was don't sell your furniture. If you've got nice like oak or wooden furniture, just get it shipped over because furniture is so expensive in New Zealand. So we kept all our furniture, not many of the clothes and things like that, mostly kind of like our sofas and like any kind of chest of drawers and things like that. So mostly just furniture based.
Which I suppose would also have a decent resale value if you wanted to get rid
Yeah,
of these.
exactly. And luckily they're like solid wood. As I said, if you've got them from like MDF or things like that, then just buy new. But yeah, I think that and kind of quite a lot of sentimental things to us. And yeah, electronics like photography gear and stuff like that. I got all shipped over. But yeah, there's some weird things that you don't even think about. Like my granddad, bless him, before he passed away, made me a rocking horse. Absolutely stunning rocking horse, and I really wanted to bring it over here, but the trouble is he used real horse hair for the hair of the horse,
Interesting.
which is fine. You can get it done through customs and things like that, but and also the fact it's quite fragile in itself. It was kind of I don't know. In the end, it's just living with Helen's, my wife's parents. But yeah, it's one of those things that you have to somewhat. Is it going to get damaged?
Yeah.
I only had one thing get damaged.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was a really expensive monitor. Out of all the things that could have got damaged, it was a really expensive monitor. But the shipping company covered it and just replaced it. Yeah, replaced it for a second hand or gave me the money for a second hand one. But other than that, it was actually really smooth process, to be honest.
Very good.
Yeah.
So you got all your stuff over. You have landed in this whole new country. What were some of the immediate shocks or differences that you had that stick out? You don't have to list all of them, but just something that pops up in the old noggin.
Sizes of the road. I lived in countryside back in the UK, but and there's so many one lane country tracks everywhere, and you'd have to do so much reversing. And here, I don't think I've ever reversed, other than maybe into a parking space. It's just the size of the roads and the fact that if you want to go to a shop. And this might kind of be completely alien to an American, but you can't park outside the shop in the UK. You'd have to go to a designated parking area, pay $6 or $7 to park there for half an hour, then you walk for 10 minutes to get to the shop, and then you walk back again.
Is that everywhere?
Yeah, well, pretty much, yeah. It's unusual that you can park directly outside a shop. So when I came here, and so we started in Christchurch, while they were still building the department that they said they built. I was amazed. I could actually, if I wanted to go to, I don't know, Torpedo 7, I could actually just park outside Torpedo 7. It's just,
and that is well different to the States because I find Christchurch parking to be horrendous.
Really?
Honestly.
Wow.
Like the amount of times that I've had to find some parking lot somewhere and pay for it and walk, and that's ridiculous from an American perspective because you go somewhere and you can fit like 8 of these tiny little cars that we've got running around here in one of the parking spots that are like hundreds of Walmart in the States.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many parking spaces. Like you can go anywhere here and there's like, I don't know, 20 parking spaces nearby, apart from in the very, very centre of town. But even then, you just drive around a couple of times and you can find a parking space.
Yeah, usually.
That was a massive bonus for us. We really appreciate it. And the fact that when we worked in the NHS, if you went to work, you had to pay to park in the car park, even though you worked there, and you paid for a permit. And then if you wanted to leave, you had to wait in an hour-long queue to get out of the car park to go home again. So when I came here and I could just park straight outside the Timaru Hospital, it was like, where is everyone? Why why is there a tiny car park? Or why is everyone like? Does anyone work here?
So, were there any? That's obviously a very stark physical difference between the
Yeah,
places. Were there any particular cultural differences? Obviously, for me, not coming from a Commonwealth country, there's a lot of Britishy behaviors that happen here that
yeah.
were hugely shocking to me that probably weren't to you. But were there anything, or was there anything that stood out to you as somebody coming from the UK?
No, probably not as much as you would find because I think a lot of the British culture has come over,
Mm,
and I think a lot of the people are here probably are part of the British colonization originally, and a lot of the people I talk to um, are either British or kind of have friends that are British, and
mm,
that made it so much easier. Whereas I know, like a friend that's come over from another country, she was getting a lot of abuse, saying that uh, she taking people's jobs and things like that. And even though we do exactly the same job, she was getting abuse for saying that she was taking New Zealanders' jobs. Whereas for me, they were like, "Thank you so much for coming over. I really
right.
appreciate what you can bring and what you're bringing to Timaru."
Yeah, and that's one really good kind of point is that, a lot of times you'll hear me highly praising Aotearoa and New Zealand and especially in some of the cultural relations that they have here, but it is not immune to some of the same things that we're seeing in my home country at the moment. Definitely not immune to that. And I've even caught some of that. There's quite a bit of anti-American sentiment out there in the world these days, and I in a way, understand that. There's not a lot of pleasantries going on over there at the moment, so I can understand that. But for the large majority, as you said
Yeah,
earlier, Kiwis here are
amazing.
extremely amazing, very welcoming to absolutely anyone. But it is something to be aware of that here we're not immune from that
No,
at all.
I think also working in the healthcare system, people are already on edge, and they kind
Yes,
of those extremes come out rather than maybe in day to day life they wouldn't be quite like that.
yeah.
But it is interesting that even though I do exactly the same job, we have different
Yeah.
perspectives on what how people treat us.
Yeah. So let's shift gears just a little bit here because now you've got a really interesting perspective having come from NHS to the New Zealand system. And even though you're working in private
Yeah.
rather than in the public system, are there any particular differences that you see, good, bad, or otherwise, between the two different systems? Because again, obviously, the
Yeah.
state system drastically different, and my wife has kind of let me in on some of those things. But how's that differ for you?
Yeah, so basically in the UK, I was a reporting radiographer, so I could report radiographic images, so X-rays and those kind of things. And then when I came over here, I'm not allowed to do that job. That job is solely done by doctors, and there doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. So I have a whole master's that I can't use. So I've had to completely retrain and do a different modality, which I absolutely love.
So yeah, this sociopath over here is going for another master's degree, and I've walked through some of that with him and give him some applause, virtual applause there because I couldn't.
I'm coming to the end. It'll be 10 years at university. But yeah, when they said I had to go to university in the interview, I was like, oh, again, really? But I mean, yeah. So it's difficult because in the NHS there's no money. Basically, it's kind of what can we get out of the minimal funding. But in doing so, they allow you so much more freedom to go. Actually, yeah, go for it. Have that responsibility. Go and do that. As long as you're happy to do it for a minimum amount of money, then yeah, you can have that responsibility that would predominantly be done by a doctor. I think the UK obviously provides quite a lot of research and those kind of things, so we're quite forward thinking. And yeah, coming over here, it's kind of maybe a little bit behind those kind of forward thinking planning of what the UK could provide. But there are quite a lot of similarities, and it's yeah, it's interesting, kind of the perspectives of radiographers in that sense that we would argue everything. We
Mm,
would say, we would say to a doctor, no, we disagree. Whereas over here, they go, no, okay, whatever the doctor says, that's what we're going to do.
okay.
So I think there's quite a lot more autonomy maybe in the UK compared to here, but they are quite similar. And I think if the health service lacks more funding, I think it will go more to a UK based where actual
Mm.
people can take on blurred lines of responsibilities and things like that. So yeah, there's still loads of wait times. I've been to A&E once, and the wait times are pretty long. But yeah, probably not quite as bad as the NHS, where we had, say, 15 or 16 ambulances waiting outside, and the patients were still in the ambulances waiting to come in, those kind of things. So I think the health system seems to be in a better position right now, but it's difficult with the amount of funding that they're getting.
Yeah.
It's probably hard.
Well, and some of that too will due to population size. Just
Yeah,
genuinely, obviously New Zealand is a much smaller country when we're
Yeah.
talking about all of this, but still under the same constraints, under the same problems. I mean, even in the States where we do have large amounts of funding, both government and private, and all of that we'll not get into. I kind of find the wait times to be very similar actually from the States as here.
Really?
Which again here is going to be shorter than something like the UK because of the population density and that kind of thing. But I think also, for the most part, we're pretty well covered. Like Timaru is a pretty small town to have as big of a health system as it does.
Yeah.
And we're pretty fortunate in that. So shifting back to the original conversation, was there something Kiwi specific, New Zealand specific that you had to learn, or something that took you by surprise in maybe a negative or kind of funny way?
I think it was the fact that when we came over, and it's a really good thing, but it's quite hard at the start, is when they drop Māori words into a sentence. And I thought, I don't know what that word means, which is great because I would, if I had time, I'd go and look it up and try and work it out. But it was trying to understand the sentence to start with and trying to work out from what the context of what they're saying, what whānau was. And I was like, I don't know. It's difficult if you're brand new to the country to work out what actually that means. And it's a great way to introduce it. But equally, I always would like, if I see a sign, I'd like to see it the first time in English so I can actually work that. If you're brand new to the country, then you don't know what those words mean.
Yeah. And some of the pronunciations can be quite difficult to wrap your tongue around. And some of the spellings are weird. It took me a while to realize that the WH was a fa sound. And that was bizarre. That was quite hard to figure out. And definitely, like you said, when people drop it in the middle of a sentence and you're unfamiliar with it, it can be much more tricky. And now that I've been here a while,
it's great.
It's fantastic. You just drop it in. It's like seasoning on your
food.
Just something extra. Was there anything that you had to unlearn? So that's a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, as an American, we come across quite loud, quite confident, quite in your face, which is the exact opposite of what the ideal Kiwi citizen would be. You're kind of supposed to be humble, and there's that kind of tall poppy syndrome that you hear about occasionally.
I think it was to not take myself so seriously. In the UK, people are quite serious. I mean, that's a very generalization, but when I first came over here, people thought I was quite a serious person, and actually Kiwis are fun. They are so good fun. They have such a good laugh, and it's getting the things that you want to get done, like being professional, but equally having that fun and coming to work. I've never been happier doing what I do. Like, you still get the same things done, but you have such a good laugh doing them. And the patients are so kind of, they want to joke around, or they want to have that fun as well. They're so refreshing rather than just being such serious. Like, this is what we're going to do. This is.
Well, and that is considered professionalism here too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's much more relational, much more relaxed, but still very professional. And let's get the job done. And it's the same thing here. I have a good laugh with my coworkers all the time, but even Kiwis in general are just. Sometimes they're relaxed enough to kind of border on a little bit psycho. Please don't take that the wrong way. But I'm in the middle of planning a stag do, which by the time that you're watching this, you'll probably have seen the live stream that we're doing with this poor guy. But hearing some of the stories of what these guys did on their own stag do's, I'm just going to say, and I'm sorry for the person that I'm telling this story about, it involved a taser that was homemade.
Nice.
And also involved getting their nipples pierced.
Wow.
For a stag do. And that's just, that is a level that I don't want to go to. let's be real here. That's not for me personally.
Wow.
So what was your favorite and least favorite difference when you were coming here? Obviously you're talking about the working culture, and that can be it if you want it to be. But if there's anything else that stands out,
Yeah, I think it's the community spirit and the kind of familial kind of side to at least in Timor anyway. I've always felt immediately part of the community. Felt like I when I talk to other uh, professionals or shop owners and things like that, they always make me feel welcome. I've never kind of felt like an outsider, and immediately as soon as I arrived, I felt like it's just the UK version 2, basically.
hmm
Um, the thing that I struggled to get used to was the prices of food.
yeah,
That's insane. Like we call them peppers, and I still can't. It's capsicums, isn't it?
hmm
Yeah. In the UK, we would just buy a pepper or a capsicum, and that would be it. That we every kind of week or so we buy one or two, and then we put them in food. And now you have to remember what seasons there are, and you have to,
yes,
and you
yes,
go, okay, well it was $1 or $2 for this day, and then like a couple of months later it's like $9. So you're
yeah.
like, yeah, something I actually have to think about seasonal foods, and do I actually want to pay $9 for for a
Did
capsicum?
you find that the food tasted different here?
There is some amazingly good food here.
Yeah, so that
So
was
good.
huge for us because we felt like everything from the States was quite processed, and even the vegetables and the fruits were forced to grow year round.
I
So the
see.
things that you got were subpar, even when they were in the season compared
Yeah.
to how they were here. But I didn't know if that was just a solely American thing or if that was
I mean, we obviously do have quite a lot of farmlands and things. We probably don't process it as much as Americans, but um, yeah, some of their, I mean, we call them crisps and they call
mm.
them chips. And then I get really confused because I'm thinking chips are hot. And they're like, well, you need to ask for hot chips. And I'm like, but chips
Yeah.
are always hot. But yeah, like their chips are so tasty. Like there's so I've got like real fat just from all the food that we enjoy. It's so nice. There's so many good things that we would just just go out and absolutely gorge ourselves. I mean, I haven't experienced all the delicacies that New Zealand has to offer, but yeah,
Mm.
the chips and dip are to die
Yeah.
for.
Oh, absolutely. That kiwi dip, if you know, you know.
Yeah.
It's too
I tried it and then it's not, I didn't do it very well. And then someone actually showed me properly and he
yes.
didn't show me and it's,
So good. So good. All right, so we're getting kind of towards the end of the formal thing, and then I have a couple more just fun questions for you. But if you had to do it again, if you were sitting back where you were however many years ago, would you do it?
Oh, 100%. Wouldn't even like,
Would that night?
no, would like 100% would go for it. It's the best decision we've ever made by such a long way. The yeah, we just settled in so well. What's really interesting is, like I said, I was quite a senior videographer when I was back in the UK, and I had a full master's, and the salary equivalent of a student now that I am now is the same. So I had like very
No
little,
latency. Okay.
and obviously as like I qualify and progress, my salary will go up. And yet when I was like really senior position in the UK, and yet wasn't I had no real prospects to get much higher than that. So yeah, and the work-life balance is amazing. I mean, it's difficult because I'm like part of a really great team at work. We have such good fun. The difference is I actually like going to work, whereas before, I didn't mind going to work, but it's one of those things like, oh, I don't really want to go to work. But now I'm just like, okay, cool, it's my day to go to work. Great, let's go to work.
Awesome.
I think 100% wouldn't change it, and I have no plans to go back.
Love it. Do you view the UK differently now?
Yes, very differently. In my head, it's really grim and dull. I don't know how to describe it. And so crowded, like so crowded. I went back. I literally arrived in New Zealand. Really unfortunate circumstance in some ways. My granddad passed away, so then I got straight back on a plane and went back again, and I got to experience New Zealand in a UK sandwich, basically.
Yeah.
And it was so crowded and so many people on the roads. There was queues, traffic, everything. And I just thought, it's just concrete. The whole thing is, that's very generalization, but like you go to major cities and it's just concrete after concrete. And the biggest difference, I would say, actually going back to some of the points you made earlier, is the fact that if I go somewhere in New Zealand, it's an hour and a half away, it's 2 hours away, but the journey is just phenomenal. You see so many
Mm,
different things as you go there that it doesn't feel like it's a 2 hour journey.
yeah,
Whereas in the UK, you go, I really want to go there. That's great. There's some amazing places, but actually, the 2 hours to get there is just tarmac and everything. Yeah, it's
yeah,
just
concrete jungle.
yeah, concrete jungle.
So, if you could offer one or two pieces of advice to someone considering making the move themselves from anywhere in the world,
Yeah,
even if it's just general advice about making a move overseas,
yeah.
what would that advice be?
Come here and experience. It's not for everyone, and
Yeah.
as much as it is for me, and it's the perfect lifestyle. If you like the countryside, and you like work-life balance, and you like enjoying time away from work, come to New Zealand. Just go and experience it. At least come for a month. You need to experience it
Mm,
as much as you can. Anything less than that, you won't really get an idea of it. I just go for it. Just honestly, like it's hard. The hardest thing is like your family, but they will support you.
mm,
And then don't go back to the UK. I know I'm saying that as I did go back to the UK for a funeral
yeah.
because I kind of have to. But if unless you have to go back for a very serious reason, just give it 2 years.
Yeah.
And then if you hate it, then go back because yeah, it's if you can do it and you get over here, it's the best decision. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And one of the best pieces of advice that was given to me when we first landed here, and I think that you would probably agree with this. Um, I sat down with a guy from South Africa who had moved here, and he's an incredibly clever guy, Dr. Sean DeToit. I would highly recommend that you get in contact with him if you're in the area and have a coffee with him. He's a great guy. But he sat down with me and he looked me straight in the eyes and he says, here's the best thing I can tell you is that you share a language, but don't think you share a culture.
Okay.
Take some time,
Yeah.
and you are going to have some common ground with these people. They're going to understand how you speak, they're going to understand how you work, but there's a lot of things that you're going to have to relearn, though. A lot of things you're going to have to think about, and that even more apparent for me.
Yeah.
But there are subtle differences for you as well. So just when you're going somewhere else, be open-minded, be willing and ready to accept the changes because you are the foreigner there.
Yes.
There are strengths that you can bring as a foreigner, but make sure that you're ready for that. So that kind of wraps up the formal portion of this. And I just want to give Dave a quick second here because Dave isn't just a healthcare worker. He isn't just this guy who moved from the UK. He's actually a phenomenal photographer. And I have learned a lot from him already. I'm nowhere near his level, but I want to give you just a little bit of a platform here to say, how did you get into photography? And my favorite question that I have been thinking of for days now is, what photo are you most proud of?
Okay. Yeah. Um, what? That's a real tough question. So my
I surprised him with this one. I gave him kind of a list of the questions beforehand, but this one was new.
yeah. So I went to a wildlife center and we went to one of those hides and we were just looking out and we saw a kingfisher. And if you've seen what a UK kingfisher looks like, it doesn't look like kingfishers in different countries. It's electric blue and it's just these phenomenal colors. And I thought, I want to photograph that. And that little tiny bird cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. And I just wanted to get better. And they're probably one of the hardest things to photograph. Yeah, because they're so fast. And the proudest moment I've got is probably photographing one diving into the water and catching a little tiny fish. It took me about 3 days in the same spot, watching this tiny kingfisher dive, completely missing it every single time until I got one of the best images I've ever got in my life. And it was, yeah, it's enjoying that nature and just relaxing and actually going, this is not my world, this is their world.
Mm.
I want to watch their behavior and enjoy it, and then it just so calms me, and that's why I do.
And I love how you said that because that's the common ground we have in photography, and I think the common ground we have in moving to a different country like New Zealand is that you can look through a photographer's lens and you can see the beauty here, and in a way, photography is kind of unlike any other art. in the way that you're not actually making the art, you're just capturing the art that actually exists
Absolutely.
already.
Yeah,
And you can argue with me on that one for a little bit of Photoshop action and stuff like that that gets going into it, but no, that's absolutely beautiful. So, Dave, can you send me that photo? And for the people that are on TikTok, I'm going to go ahead and chuck that photo up now so that you can see it. And Dave, give me a plug for your website because if anybody wants to go and look, there are things that you can purchase from Dave. I'm not trying to say that I'm sponsored by him or anything, but just have a look at his website and just have a look at some of his work because it is pretty amazing.
Thank you so much. It's www.dblphotography.co.nz.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. We're actually doing pretty well on time here. It's been a good conversation, and hopefully that's been of some value to you guys listening along at home. If you have questions for Dave, he's on TikTok as well, DBL Wildlife. He doesn't know that I'm tagging him on that either. But feel free to give him a follow or give him some questions, especially you guys from the UK who might be listening to this and are curious about what it's like to move overseas.
Absolutely.
Fantastic contact here. But thank you for joining us, and we look forward to doing this journey. And if you want to hear from Dave again, let me know. I mean, we can have him back on. It's not Timaru's not that far. So yeah, thank you again, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you so much.